Okay, meaning, what do you mean by natural law? Sources, where do you get this from? Greek, Roman, and medieval modern. We're just doing a bit on it, okay? Because there's so many people, there are so many writers writing up on all of this stuff. If you could look into the materials which I've uploaded on your UiTM Future in the links in our lesson plan, you could look more to this. For example, some even argued that Pythagoras yang segitiga and all that, yeah. Apparently he also wrote something on natural law. Okay, so meaning, where do we start? Yep. Something higher than man-made law. Okay. Even during times of the Greek, the law was made by human beings. Even during times of the Greek, hang on. You have this kan, demos gratia. Okay, this is what law was made by the people for the people themselves, even during the times of the Greek. Okay, so the question is, just because my king or just because my representatives of my city-states have made the law in this particular country, city-state, are these the absolute laws which I need to follow? Are there any other laws which are higher than these man-made laws? So that was the meaning, that was the significance of the concept of natural law. So it is something higher than man-made law. Anything else? It is just, it is fair. Anything else? It is universal. Universal. Semua tempat sama. Okay. So because when you look into law that is made by men, either by your king or by the representatives, by people sitting in your legislature, for example, there is no requirement, there is no guarantee that these laws are just, are fair. So this is why then people turn to, there is something else. We must also look into natural law. Okay. Why should we be concerned with something which is just and fair? Before we look at universal dulu lah. Okay, why? What's wrong? What is so special about this? It is just, it is fair. So what? Yep. Any answers?
So that it is a good, can be considered as a good law.
Okay, again, why should we be concerned with the law, whether it is good law or bad law?
So,
To consider.
so that it can serve justice to people.
Okay, anything else?
To distinguish what is considered as wrong or right.
Okay, again, how is that even important? Anything else? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Should be better.
Is it to protect or safeguard the
Protect and safeguard what?
rights of the people?
Okay. If you want to protect and safeguard the rights of the people, why can't you just do it from the laws which are made by your representatives? Why should you be concerned with natural law, something which is higher? Yep.
So maybe to avoid discrimination, especially in those times, there were different classes of people. So that's why you cannot just simply make your representative to make the law, because it will be biased depending on your class of status back then.
Okay. We are human beings. So some parts of us being humans, we would love to have something which is just, to have something which is fair, something which is based on good values. I mean, that's just us being human beings. So that's why we look up to natural law. That is why we insist that we must have principles which are just, which are fair, which are equitable. It's just us, being the nature of us, being human beings. Next, this law being universal, meaning to say what? It is the same. Whichever place that you go to, whichever continent that you go to, whichever time period that you are in, you will insist that the law is like this. It is universal. Not only that it must be good and fair and just hundreds of years ago, it must also be good, just, and fair now. That's just us being human beings. Okay, next, sources. So where do you get all these sources which tell you that what do you mean by good? What do you mean by just? What do you mean by fair? Okay, number one is reason. Okay, reason will tell you what is good, what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong. Okay, next, God or religion. Because any religion would insist that in our religion this is about good values. What you have, what the 10 commandments in Christianity, for example. And of course, if you have to look into the values of Islam, for example, the lifestyle of the Prophet. So you'll say that will be what those are the standards in which a Muslim would have to aspire to. Okay. Could you get good values from customs? Anyone?
Yes. Yes,
Example?
sir. In custom, sometimes they teach us how to behave in a good way.
Example.
For example, giving greetings before meeting people, I guess.
Mm, okay, can lah. But you have to remember. There are obviously customs are also sources of things which are unfair and unjust and even brutal and downright violations of human rights. So it's not really clear on that point. Okay, so roughly this is natural law, probable sources from natural law, and so on. So let us go to the Greeks. Okay, getting back to this essay. Firstly, he started with Lord of the Rings. Not sure how many of you have even finished reading the entire tome of Lord of the Rings. If you've read the original version, the book lah, the Lord of the Rings, all 3 volumes of them, you will know that there are a lot of stuff which are not conveyed in the movie. So anyway, so he started with this of the rings, orcs, and so on. Okay. We are looking at what page is that? What page is that? Page, what page? What page? Okay, we're looking at page 803. So, according to this writer, when you look at pre-Socratic Greek, this is way before Greek, way before Socrates. Socrates was the one that was famous by asking questions. If you want to get a good answer, that means you have to get a good question. Okay. According to him, before Socratic, there was a faint glimmer or some notion of natural law. Okay. Like what? He said, justice, it was something that was regarded as something important in ancient Greek societies a long time ago, in which one of the Tuhan, one goddess was named as the goddess of justice. I mean, that showed us how this is something important in society. It's not just Zeus, the father of God, or it's not just something, what else? Ares is the god of war, or it's not something like Athena, the goddess of wisdom. Was it goddess of love, Aphrodite? And not just, those are not the only important values. Justice was also important as a value. So these people thought of the goddess of justice. Okay. Next. Then this writer referred to Demosthenes. According to Demosthenes, when you look into this, but nature herself has declared it in unwritten laws in the hearts of men. Meaning to say what? Yeah. Yeah. What? Obviously, when you talk about natural law, it is something about just and fair and so on. And it does not have to be in written form. It does not have to be contained in our law, in our written law. No, it is contained in our written. It is contained in our written laws, and in the hearts of men. Someone come in, Joel William. Okay, thank you for joining us, Joel. In the hearts of men, benda ni. In your conscience, in our conscience. Meaning to say what? We know that it is wrong. We know that it is bad. We know that it is unjust. That is part of nature. That is part of natural law. Okay. Next, when you go, then he said, okay, what about Hippias? And Hippias, a sophist in Greece, may have been the first person to record the use of the phrase of natural law. Okay. Hippias included. What do you mean by natural law? Orang tanya dia. Then he said, what? It includes this: honoring parents. You have to protect and honor your parents. You have to worship gods. Okay. Right. Okay. Then, of course, Socrates sees the consequence of punishment prescribed by gods and the law. Okay, what is this? Sorry, one trying to come in. Okay. No. Virtuous conduct having what you might call a natural reward, and vice versa, and vice a natural penalty. What is this? Yeah. Yep. What? Virtuous conduct is something which is good. Virtuous conduct lah, perangai yang elok, yang senonoh. This is what we say. Then it is some form of a natural reward. Meaning to say what? We like lah all of this virtuous conduct. So vice, maksiat and so on. This is a natural penalty. Meaning to say what? Vice lah, minum and mabuk and so on and whatever. Yeah, we know that one part of us, we know that there's something wrong with this. Again, this is part of the natural law. What is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong. Okay. Now, other sophists were very much opposed to the idea of venerating natural law. Okay, pasal apa? That other sophists, they don't really like the idea of why are we really talking about natural law ni? What is so important about natural law? Semua ni. Okay, then you have this. Sophists have been associated with relativism and nihilism. Okay, so now let us explain what do you mean by sophists. Sophism. Kalau you are the supporter of this, you will call yourself a sophist. Okay. Tadi dia cakap apa? Sophists believe in relativism and nihilism. Okay. Explain to me what is relativism, and also explain to me what is nihilism. Yep. Anyone? Allahu Akbar. Yep.
So for
Yeah.
nihilism, it means that a person that rejects all kind of religious or moral principles. So we can say like it's somehow like atheist, and then like they believe like the life is meaningless, so they separate the religions from life.
Yeah, but relativism, relative, it is different. So what? Ash. Yep. Relativism meaning to say what? For example, what is good to you might not be good to me. What is bad to you might not be bad to me. It's relative. It is different. It is subjective. There you go. So, for example, you talk about this idea of natural law, can it is good, it is just, it is fair, it must be the same, it is a standard, it is universal. All countries, all parts of each country will be the same with this. Sophist tak setuju. Sophist said, well, things are different. Things are subjective. Things are relative. It's not the same. Nihilism is what? Pointless. Pointless meaning to say what? Tak perlu, you do not need to be concerned with life, or maybe, or you do not need to be concerned with the hala tuju objective of your life. No, everything is useless, everything is pointless. Itu nihilism. Okay, these are very strong, but there you go. Adjective. One of the things, and Sufism says what? That is no truth. That's only that is only belief. It's only I. There is only belief. Apa klaim? That is no truth. That is only a belief. Betul tak? But 2 plus 2 does not equal 4. No. There is no truth. Nothing. There is only belief. You only believe that 2 plus 2 equals to 4. Okay. So this principle, there is no truth, there is only belief ni. Matrix. The movie. Okay, there's one principle from Matrix movie which illustrates this concept. There is no truth, there is only belief. What is that principle? Anyone? Anyone? Matrix, Neo, Keanu Reeves. Nothing?
I think no one watched the Matrix yet. Sir.
Okay. Matrix. It is not real. It only exists in your mind. That's right. This was a principle of a principle of Sufism, that there is no truth. Contoh, okay, for example, you are saying, you know, there are something which we call good values. These good values are supposed to be natural, and they are supposed to be immutable, and they're supposed to be universal. Semua orang must have these values. Then Sufism kata there is no truth. You only believe in that. How do you prove? Because Sufis believe everything is relative and subjective. Sufism dia tak suka. Sufism did not support the idea of natural law. Someone else. Yes, Nurul Iman. Thank you for joining us. Next. Okay. Now, according to Sufis, we shouldn't bother looking into the idea of natural law. Why? And natural law ni macam it is the best, the good, and so on. Unless you're talking about being the dominance of the strongest. Because, you know, you would argue that who should listen, who should rule society, and so on. You would argue it must be based on the values of the individual and all that. But, you know, in life, according to Sophists, they believe that, well, the only thing in life is if your strength, the strongest. That one, okay, if you're looking into this. Other than that, when you look into good values and so on, no, that's pointless. Okay. Now, and then also, the Sophists considered nature, and according to Sophists, they believe in this. If you talk about nature, usually we talk about, it means cultural norms, custom, and positive law. Okay. According to Sophists, it does not exist. Why? Because, you know, even in cultural norms, Sophists believe that everyone is different. Look, you live in different tribes. You belong to different ethnicities, social groups. So your values are different. And there is nothing natural about it. Nothing. Okay. So, so Sophists kata, if you look into nature, don't look into something above lah, higher lah, apa semua tu. You look into the ways of man as the ways of nature. Why? Because they said everything must be measured from the value, from the viewpoints of man, because man is the measure of all things. Okay. Now, okay. Now, for example, it is might which makes right. The strongest survive. This one, this is very logic according to Sophists. Yeah, because this is what happens for men, to human beings. That if you're strong, if you're the strongest, you could make any kind of decision and you could force it upon others. This is where in the law, in the natural world, it is the strongest. It is the strong that survives. So, contoh, what do you mean by the word natural? Okay, you would say what? Something which is common, ordinary, important, usual, for human beings lah. Okay, and then you argue. Okay, for example, the duty to tell the truth, the duty not to hurt someone else. So this is you argue these are common values, these are ordinary, these are important for any human beings. Okay, fine. Tapi then Sophist beritahu, Sophist will answer this. Well, man is an animal. Okay. Kalau animal, you go into the jungle, what do you see? Yeah. Yes. Anyone? Survival of the
Survival of the fittest, sir.
Because you have to be the strongest. That is what happens in the wild. In the wild, okay, people also in the wild, if you're an animal in the wild, other animals will try to kill you, other animals will try to eat you. Which is why they said naturally, man as an animal, you have to be, it is just about the survival of the fittest. So what? As an animal, the only thing that you care about is
Survive.
ourselves. We have to survive. Yang lain tak penting. So all of these values are what? Loyalty, ke kindness, ke helpfulness, ke gratitude, ke telling the truth, ke all of these are not important. The most important thing is us, me, myself. I need to survive. Itu the Sophist kata. Okay, so but that is a bit weird lah, because natural law is something which is good, fair, and just. Okay. Right. Okay, what is it? What is it? Okay, and then here this writer then explain lah. The Sophist view of natural law. Yeah, the Sophist view of natural law is problematic because it results in immoral values. And then what? Because it does not follow the Bible and so on. But Bible, of course, the Quran lah. It also does not follow the rules in the Kitab and so on. Okay. Next. And then you have this. Some Christians have rejected natural law. Okay, because some Christians believe that believe in the created world, meaning to say what happens here, rather than being concerned with the Creator, with God, with religion and so on. Yeah, because when you ask some people, they believe that okay, what is most important? Look into the world in reality. What happens? So then they use that argument. The most important thing is the survival of the fittest, because man is an animal, whatever. Then people say, look, what about religion? This people tak suka religion because they said this Darwinism. Darwinism. Okay. Darwinianism, Charles Darwin, okay, was the one who popularized this concept. Now, he did not invent this concept, but he was the one who popularized this concept, survival of the fittest. Meaning to say what? You must be the strongest in the community. And anything else? So, what else? It is your survival which is most important. Values tak kira. These are not important. They are irrelevant. Okay. Now, next. Obviously, Socrates, being Socrates, rejected the sophist value. Yep. Okay. According to Socrates, individual human beings, in our life, kan, you should look over self-interest and prejudice. Sebab kalau you are only concerned with only yourself sahaja, then that's just self-interest and that's just prejudice. Okay. Next, then you go to Plato. Okay. Now, Plato did not refer precisely to natural law. Okay. However, Plato believed that God was the measure of all things, not men and their will. Okay. There you go. Okay. So meaning to say what? Plato believed there is something else. It's not just men sahaja yang penting. Other things which are more important. For example, the idea of God. The idea that, all of these come from God and so on. Okay. One of the things which is relevant here is this. Was it? Plato. Theory of forms. Okay. What is this all about, theory of forms? This is about values. Okay. Let's look into this. Okay. Now, there's so many values, like, for example, what? Honesty, anything else? Kindness, anything else? What?
Gratitude.
Okay. What?
Gratitude.
Yeah, okay. Gratitude, hard work, even P-E-A-U-T-Y, duty, examples of values. Because sophists have been attacking all of this, that, there's no such thing as values. Values are not real. They are subjective. They are relative. So don't bother with all this. So Plato came up with his theory of forms to say that no, values are universal and standard. Okay, let's look, for example, beauty. Okay, Asian, why? Images. Your idea of beauty lah. Here, this are Caucasian features, orang putih. Okay, next, maybe we go to is Asian beauty. Why is Asian beauty standards? Okay. Japan, Korea, China, and so on. Yeah. These are the most popular versions of standards of beauty lah for many people in East Asia. In order for it to be beautiful in East Asia, you need to like this, and so on. Okay. South Asia, Asian standards. Okay. South Asian referring to India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and so on. Okay. So what do we see? If you're a sophist, then you will argue that, all of these are different. And maybe some of you prefer the Caucasian idea of beauty because blonde hair, fair skin, and so on. Okay. Okay. What does that show? What does that show? What does that prove? Then you will say, sir, that means it is betul lah. It is subjective even in terms of beauty. Okay. According to Plato, subconsciously, subconsciously, we all believe in the importance of the values. Okay. How those values are manifested might be different. But just because in real life those values are different in reality, it does not mean therefore that it is different. It is subjective. It is the same. Okay, these are what he explained to us in his theory of forms. What's the purpose? To lawan the idea under sophism that values are subjective and so on. Okay. Now, maybe another discussion is this punishment of theft. What's the punishment? Yeah.
Imprisonment.
Yes. Yep.
Mutilation of hand.
Firstly, you will have in Malaysia, it is imprisonment. Okay. Sometimes what?
So whipping.
Mutilation of the limbs. Sometimes you will also have whipping. Okay, now these are the forms of punishment of theft around the world. Okay, around the world. Different countries have different punishments for theft. Some have this, some have this, some also have this. Okay, so therefore, what does this mean? This means what? What? Are you saying therefore that, if orang-orang in the Western countries, they are tidak moral because the punishment for theft in those countries is just what imprisonment and that's it. And then you will argue, but in Islamic countries, the punishment is so severe, mutilation of limbs. That shows that the values in Islamic countries are much higher. Can we even say that? Cannot lah, because under Plato's theory of forms, all of these different kinds of punishments do not stray away from the fact, do not diminish the fact that all of these countries do not like theft. That theft is a crime in all of these countries. So we share the same value lah, that we do not like theft. How those values are manifested, how the punishment is contained in the law, it might be different. But that does not mean, therefore, we are subjective. That was the idea under theory of forms. Kalau you nak tengok a bit further kan, there is this one book written by Syed Nakib Al-Atas, Prolegomena of Metaphysics. And do I have the book? Hang on. I have it. Where is it? Where did I put it? This is very, a friend borrowed that book, but okay, Prolegomena of Metaphysics in Islam. This is written by Syed Nakib Al-Atas. Syed Nakib Al-Atas was referring to one specific verse in the Quran. In that verse in the Quran, they kata, there is this period in which where we were created in the form of roh, in the form of spirit, okay, And in that moment, kita semua sudah mengangkat sumpah that we will follow the commands of God and so on. So so your idea, your belief in what is good, fair and just, awal-awal lagi dah ada kat dalam itu when we were created in that form, in which we have our jasad have not yet been created, not yet. So that is a bit the same with, or rather what Plato was saying is very much mirrors to this lah, that subconsciously we believe, subconsciously we know that these are good phenomena, and subconsciously we want all of these values. How they are manifested, they might be different. Okay. Those. Okay. So Plato. Okay. Next, Aristotle. Okay. Aristotle pula. Okay. One of the stuff. You could read this lah. He did mention about natural justice, about what? That was this. Practical justice and distributive justice lah, and so on. Okay. Then Aristotle is the ancestor of natural theories that seek to find an objective standard, that things are the same. They are not subjective. Okay. Anything else? Under Aristotle, okay. What is most important about Aristotle was this. Aristotle looked into the nature of human being. A human being is ada what? Dia kata ada reason and what? Appetites. Appetites. Okay. Now, things will be unjust kalau you follow your appetites. So that means, according to him, you must make sure that the reason must control the appetites. Okay, so he famously came up with this. The law is reason, free from passion. Okay, passion, it refers to our feelings. And there's so many passions lah, like what? Like hate, like love, like disgust. These are passion. So some people say that you cannot allow your life to be controlled by your passion. Passion ni appetites lah, right? So the saying is that in order for you to live a moral life, in order for you to live what? Life as happiness. Happiness means life of virtue. Okay. What is the meaning of life of virtue? This is reason must control the passion. And this is what Aristotle said. Okay. Yeah, because for example, kalau you tengok sophists kan, sophists kata different human beings are different because human beings, you have different motivations. And then what are the stuff which influence your motivations to do something or not to do something, your purposes in life apa semua tu? Well, some people say, well, you can reason out, you ada otak, you can think what is good, what is fair, what is just, what is right, what is wrong, and so on. But you also have appetites, you also have passion. It is this passion that will sometimes lead you astray. So then Aristotle say, life is not just about, serving your passion. Yeah, life is, you have the pursuit of happiness. Now, what is the meaning of happiness? Aristotle said happiness refers to the life of virtue. What do you mean by life of virtue? Life of virtue is that reason must control the passion. Okay. So sama lah juga, for example. Okay, give me the 7 sins and in Christianity. What?
Gluttony, envy, pride.
Right. Anything else?
Gluttony.
Gluttony. Yeah. Okay. Anything?
Lust.
Lust. Okay. Anything else? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Wrong.
Greed.
Yes.
What?
Laziness.
And we practice. Oh yeah, great. Okay. What is it, Jason? I did not catch that.
Laziness, sir?
Sloth.
Sloth.
Yeah. That's lazy lah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What?
Wrath. W-R-A-T.
Okay. Wrath, anger. Okay. So, for example, wrath, angry. Okay, is it something which is normal? Yeah, lah. Because if you're not angry, if you don't have the sense to be angry, then there's something wrong with you. For example, but at the same time, you cannot allow anger to control you. That feeling of anger must be controlled by your reason. Okay. Another example is maybe what? Sloth. Sloth refers to malas and so on, but it's not just malas because, for example, you need time to relax, to unwind. Is it something important? Yeah, no, because we are not machines, we are human beings. So every now and then we have to find time to relax. Okay, but too much of it, okay, and if you make it your life only to relax, then you are turning yourself into a sloth, and that will shut down all of your senses and faculties. So sama lah juga what Aristotle was saying. All of these are where passion controls you. You cannot allow this. So sama lah juga in terms of when you look into the idea of natural law, that all of these are important. That law is made by human beings. Okay, but at the same time, when you make the law, you can't just be decided by your desire. You also have to be decided that it is reason which must control you. Okay, so for example here, Aristotle took it for granted the nature of virtuous man is such that he naturally prefers to do what is virtuous. Okay, so ini dia assumes lah. He assumes that naturally we want to do something which is virtuous, something which is good. That is part of our nature. That temptation doesn't really, it's not really a problem. Tapi itulah. This is how people have attacked him. But Aristotle have also said that life is life of virtue. This is where reason must control passion. Okay, so when you look into all of this, ideas by Plato and Aristotle, there is this focus on reason. What is good, what is just, what is fair, it can be found, it could be differentiated by reason. Yalah, because man essentially, the foundations of man, for example, anatomically, okay, it's the brain part. All of us have brain. And that assumes that therefore you must be able to reason out. Okay. Tapi itulah, so much of this did not really look into what about temptations, what about passion. Of course, this would wreak havoc with the law, for example. Okay. Now, next you have the Roman. Where is it? Study Greek. Now we go to Roman. Romans look at themselves as the inheritors, as the heirs of Greek civilization. But that's another thing we talked about in the first class, that Greek was so fond about talking about this idea of natural law. It was so fond about talking the idea of reason. so fond about talking the idea of good, justice, principles of justice, and so on. Tapi when we look into Greek civilization, there was an institution of slavery. So how does that relate to your idea of principles of justice? And then we also know that during the times of Greek civilization, women had no rights at all. You could not even own property if you were a woman back in those days. Tak boleh. Anything that you have, anything that you're entitled to, that was decided by firstly your parents and then your husband. You could not own property as a woman. So what was so good? What was so just about that situation? Okay, and then also last week we looked into the idea of the play, Antigone. Okay, the play. This is one of the ancient plays. Okay? Ancient, lama dah. Before you have all of the English plays as one, this is one of the earlier plays known to man in the history of man. And Antigone, you see, we saw there was a dilemma whether to obey the law, which was the commands of the king, or to follow the dictates of reason and conscience. What is this? Burying the dead body of the brother. Kononnya in the play of Antigone, we were presented with this, that you should follow your dictates of reason. All of these dictates of reason, that you should bury the dead of your brother. And this is something that it should be done. That was something which was good, that was fair, that was just, instead of following the commands of the king. Yeah, that was one of the stuff which was good. But when you look into the whole idea of the Greek civilization, then how do you justify the institution of slavery and the second-class status of women? Okay. Next, when you look into Roman civilization, for example, they just continued what the Greeks did. So the Stoics, there was this group, Stoics or Stoicism. This was terbalik. In the times of the Greek, you have one community which called themselves what? What was it just now? The Sophists. Okay, and Sophists tidak suka. They do not support the idea of natural law and so on. Now, during the times of the Roman civilization, it was popular. This group, the Stoics, was popular. Stoicism. Stoicism, one of the famous Stoics was this Cicero. Okay, so let's look into what is the Stoics. What is this philosophy of Stoicism? What did Cicero actually say? What is it? Where are you? Okay, here. The Stoics believe all humans had a spark of divine nature that gave them reason. Bits of reason were implanted in all things to direct them, meaning to say what? Humans bukanlah animals. And there's something good about human, and there's also something good. There are some good values which we have to find out, because this is part of our nature, human beings. Okay. Next, they believe that universal logos, this reason, divine reason, as a source of natural law, which is universal, provided a standard for all positive laws to conform to. Meaning to say what? Again, they're looking into things which are above man-made law, things which are good, things which are fair, things which are just. It's not just the most important thing as what? It is not just law which is made by our king, our dictator, our what? Our representatives of people. Itu saja, that's not important. There are other things important, in which the law made by men must conform to these standards, must conform to these values. Cicero. Where is it? Ash. Where are you? Okay. Thank you very much. This was what Cicero said. Law, in the proper sense, is right reason in harmony with nature. There you go. So law is not just any commands made by the king. Law is not just any directives propounded or enacted by your human leaders. No, it must be right reason in harmony with nature. It must be reason, not just any reason. It must be right reason in harmony with nature. There you go. Okay. Next, this is what he said. Law is not something that was enacted or created by the intelligent human beings. Oh yeah, because a long time ago, kalau you pandai, you will sit in that legislative bodies lah. You will regard it as someone intelligent. When you sat as a member of those legislative bodies, you got to make law. So according to him, Cicero kata, no, law is not something which is merely a creation of intelligent people. Instead, nor is it some kind of resolution passing with us. It is also not about merely looking into law passed in legislative bodies, legislature. Sama juga, the Romans also have this the concept of democracy, demoskratia. He said this law is an eternal force. Law rules the world by wisdom. There must be wisdom in the law. Next, in the judgment, that original final law is the intelligence of God. Okay, intelligence of God, not man. So any intelligence of man itu adalah limited. I mean, so anything that you find to be intelligent made by man, no, don't just be easily satisfied with that. Examine balik, is it really good? Because dia kata ni, in judgment, the original final law is intelligence of God. It is God that ordains or forbid everything by reason. Okay, again, you see what? Natural law must be good, must be fair, but then you have this. It is about reason. Okay. Next. So where is it? So done. Next, this. Medieval. When you look into medieval natural law, we are looking into the contributions given by your early Christian writers, because that part in which they lived and they came up with these theories, that part was what we call the medieval period lah. But these were the early Christian writers on natural law. So for example, we are looking at St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas. And before I go further, during times of the Roman can you have what? Civil and gentium. Okay, jus civil ni, if you want to translate it literally, it means what? Civil law. Okay, again, who made this law? Again, this was made by the representatives body lah. Each tempat ada their own macam mini parliament. So representatives of the people in that locality will sit in that legislative body and they would pass laws. So the laws that they made are called jus civil. So lain-lain tempat ada their own legislative bodies. So naturally, that would mean what? All of the laws are different lah, because made by different people in different localities. So there is this feeling that the laws are not the same lah. They're not universal lah. Now, can we please look at Roman Empire? Okay. This, this is the Roman Empire. Okay, parts of Europe. Okay, ini UK, Britannia, ini Europe. Okay, next parts of Africa. Ini parts of the Middle East. Ini Turkey. Dah sampai dapat some parts of Asia here. Okay, you see that it was a vast, okay, it was a vast expanse of empire. So, kalaulah the laws were subjective, relative, not the same, and so on, obviously there would have been chaos, lah. So, how did the Romans got around that? They did this. They created jus gentium. Jus gentium what? Principles of law which depended on values which were found to be the same, acceptable, or probably okay. Empire. Okay, this was known as jus gentium. Later on, this jus gentium was developed further into and jadi principles of your international law. Okay, so sama juga if you say that, you know, law was very subjective, it was made by all these different legislative bodies, every place had their own legislative bodies, therefore the law was subjective, tak sama, and so on. Well, the Romans proved to you that you're wrong because of this jus gentium. These were based on principles or values which were found to be the same, universal through all parts of the empire. This is what we call natural law, lah. Things which are just and fair and so on. Okay. Augustine and Aquinas basically said the same thing. Tak lari banyak lah. Augustine was the one who started this idea of lex injusta and ex lex. Many people thought it was Aquinas, Saint Thomas Aquinas, who came up with this. No, it was Augustine. That an unjust law is not law. Okay, it was popularized by Aquinas, yeah, but it was Augustine who created it. Now, these medieval Christian writers, study, what did we see? Greek and Roman civilizations focus on reason, otak. That is the source of natural law. Okay, the source of natural law, which is what good, fair, just, and so on. Now, when we came to the medieval period in these early Christian writers, these people tried to look into the principles of religion as the main source of you punya natural law. For example, what you have? What, for example, you have God's law. Then you have what? Divine law, and then you have what? Natural. Okay, right. So when you talk about God's law, for example, this is what something that God punya hala. So we don't know what they are. Okay. But when you look into divine law, for example, divine law will refer to, for example, stuff which are contained in your scriptures. For example, the Christians is contained in the Bible. For Muslims, contained in the Quran. Natural law is that part of God's law in which God shared with us. Like what? Itulah the feeling, the principles that you get. Why do you say that this is good? Why do you say that this is bad? Why do you say that it's right? Why do you say that it's wrong? That comes from your conscience. That good conscience comes from God lah. That is part of God's plan yang God share with us. Ada tak lagi yang God tak share with us? Yeah, there are many. Because God is omnipotent. We are not. So we cannot claim that we know everything that is known about God. Tak boleh lah. But the good stuff that we know about, this is good, this is just and fair, and that is because God allows us to do so. And that is where God shared with us his plan. Inilah dikatakan under Augustine and Aquinas. And then Aquinas also said, what if a country is ruled with unjust law, it would not be any different to a gang of robbers. Okay. Meaning to say what? Augustine was telling us that, your law must be good, must be just, must be fair. If your laws are unjust law, then it will not be different to you being part of a gang of robbers. Penyamun. So, this is important lah, that the laws must be good, must be just, must be fair. And Aquinas also there's some influences of Aristotle in Aquinas theory. For example, the idea of a virtuous life as a virtue, and that reason must control the passion and so on. Other than that, if you have time, which is also included in this essay, can you please find out other writers, early writers of Christianity, for example, Christian and because these people also contributed into the principles of natural law in early Christianity in the medieval period. But sama juga, when you look into all of this the thing that stands out from here is that the concept of your idea of natural law that comes from God. And hence you have this religious influence coming into the picture. Berbanding when you look into the ancient part of natural law under Greek and Roman, they only look at law that comes from reason. Okay, hang on. Someone tried to come in. Okay. Now, if you're also interested in the writings of Said Naqvi al-Atas yang about this polygomina tadi, one of the things that he said was this. He looked into the concept of adab. Okay. Also in his concept of adab, the layman's understanding of the word adab in Malay, for example, would be what you have to behave properly. That is our basic understanding of the word adab lah. Said Naki Altas, adab is where reason must control your passion. There you go. So samalah dengan Aristotle and samalah dengan what Aquinas was saying. Okay. Next, when you come to the modern national writers, it's not really much lah. For example, modern national writers, you have what? John Locke. John Locke was looking into the idea of that a government is not free. A government, a state, does not have absolute right, absolute freedom to make any laws that they want. That the laws made by them must be good. It must be found acceptable by the people. And also what? any laws that you make, firstly, your authority as the pemimpin, as the state, as the sovereign, you must get consent from the governed. Meaning, so you cannot just buat anything that you like as a pemimpin, as a state, as a sovereign. Ini adalah masuk dalam konsep of natural law lah. Things which are good, just, fair, and so on. Next, if you Google, Finis came up with 7 characteristics that the law must consider. This is where again, whatever Finis said, that that these 7 characteristics are important, it's kind of a bit arbitrary. Pasal apa dia kata these are important, yang lain tak important, but bear with me. After Finis, then we're going to examine non polar. And this is the idea of the 8 desiderata. And then the law must have 8 elements. If these 8 elements are not contained in your law, it is unjust, unfair, apa semua tu. Okay. Now, before I stop here, when you look into here kan, Augustine said lex injusta non est lex, which means what? And unjust law is not law. If it is not law because it is unjust, that means I have no duty to obey it lah. I have no obligation to obey it. Okay. But when it came further to Aquinas and when it came further to Finis, sudah lain. Because, for example, Finis said this. If the law is unjust, if the law is unjust, but if you were to disobey it, you would cause the destruction of the legal system. You must still obey the law. This was what Finis said. And you could see this is totally different from what Aquinas said. Aquinas said what? Aquinas said this. Lex injusta non est lex. An unjust law is not law. I mean to say what? If it is unjust, it is not law. I have no obligation to obey. Simple, kan? Unjust lah. I have no reason. I have no obligation to obey. Okay. But when it came down to Aquinas and also to Finis, sudah lain. Then it came this. Because Finis punya statement ni, he was just merely rehashing what Saint Thomas Aquinas said. So now sudah lari. Now it is different. Just because it is unjust, it does not mean you could just disobey it. No. Firstly, you have to look into what's the effect of disobeying it. If the effect is the destruction of the legal system, so it does not matter. Although it is unjust, you still have to obey it. Okay, I have to stop here. That's it. Any questions? Yep. Any questions? Okay.
No
Is there a
questions,
question?
sir.
Not any questions here? Nothing. All right, people. Thank you very much. That's it. I'll see you after break.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Selamat.
Sir.